In the year 1207, a boy was born on the eastern edge of the Persian world, near the city of Balkh. His father was one of the most respected religious scholars in the region, a man who preached to large crowds and kept a household organized around study, prayer, and the careful reading of religious texts. The boy grew up inside that world, learning Arabic and Persian, memorizing scripture and absorbing law and theology from his father. When he was still young, the family left. The Mongol armies were moving west and destroying everything in their path, and his father took the household out ahead of them, traveling for years across Persia and Arabia through Nishapur, Baghdad, Mecca, and Damascus, before eventually settling in Konya in central Anatolia, in a region the Islamic world called Rum. That is where the name we know him by comes from. He became Rumi, the one from Rum. His father died when he was 24, and Rumi stepped directly into his position. He inherited the students, the pulpit, reputation, and the responsibility of his father, and he carried all of it well. He studied for another 9 years under one of his father's senior students, deepened his mastery of law and theology, and by his late 30s, he had become one of the most respected jurists and preachers in the city. Hundreds of students followed him. He gave rulings that people obeyed. He wore the robes of his position and moved through Konya with the weight of a man whose learning had been recognized by everyone around him. Then, in 1244, a wandering dervish arrived in the city. His name was Shams, and everything about him ran the opposite of Rumi's worldview. He carried no position and no students. He had spent years traveling, refusing to settle anywhere or attach himself to any teacher or institution, and the accounts describe a man who was abrasive, unpredictable, and completely uninterested in the social forms that governed religious life. He had reportedly been praying for years to meet a person capable of receiving what he carried. The stories of their first encounter vary. In the most repeated version, Shams finds Rumi sitting beside a pool with his books, asks him a question he cannot answer, and then pushes the books into the water. In another, he asks Rumi to compare the prophet with a famous mystic, and the question cuts directly through all things Rumi had spent his life mastering. In every version, the outcome is the same. The scholar, with all the answers, meets a man who asks the one question his knowledge cannot reach. After the first encounter, the two got closer and closer, day by day, to the point the two of them withdrew from public life almost entirely and spent months in seclusion together, talking, sitting in silence, and practicing spirituality in a completely new way. Rumi stopped teaching. He stopped giving rulings. The most respected scholar in Konya had disappeared into the company of a wandering stranger with no credentials, and his students were left standing outside without any explanation from their master. They hated Shams for it. The resentment built for years, fed by the sight of their teacher abandoning his position for a man they considered an intruder. And in 1248, Shams finally vanished. Some accounts say he simply left, others say he was murdered, and a few suggest that Rumi's own son was involved in it. Nobody knows with certainty, and Rumi himself never found out. He searched for him. He traveled to Damascus looking for him, asked after him, and eventually stopped searching, because he arrived at the understanding that what he had been looking for outside himself had already taken up residence inside him. The friend he had lost and the thing the friend had woken were no longer separable. So then the poetry started. Rumi had spent almost 40 years as a scholar and produced very few poems or materials of lasting interest. After Shams disappeared, an enormous body of poetry poured out of him, thousands upon thousands of verses composed aloud, often while walking or turning in circles, taken down by whoever was near enough to write. His first great collection he refused to put his own name to, attributing it instead to Shams of Tabrizi, as though the work belonged to the man who had triggered it, rather than the man producing it. Later came the Masnavi, some 25,000 verses dictated over years, which became one of the most widely read spiritual works ever written in the Persian language, and later the whole world. The famous whirling came from the same source. The tradition holds that he was walking through the goldsmith's quarter, heard the rhythm of the hammers striking metal, and began turning in the street. The order his followers founded after his death built an entire practice around that motion. One hand raised to receive, and one hand lowered to pass through, the body turning while the center stays still. What Rumi understood after Shams was that the learning he had accumulated across 4 decades had been describing a country he had never actually visited. He knew the maps, he could repeat the routes and correct other people's errors about the terrain, but none of them had put himself directly inside the country to experience it. Shams did that by taking away all the maps and theories and taking him on an adventure. His grief is what makes the story land. The loss stayed with him for the rest of his life and never truly got resolved, and it produced the most alive body of work in his tradition. He kept teaching until his death in 1273, and when he was buried, the accounts describe Christians, Jews, Muslims, and Greeks walking together in the funeral procession, each group keeping his memory with highest regards, because the man they were burying had spent 30 years saying that the real source underneath all of these beliefs was the same thing. He died as a person who had given up his status, certainty of his own knowings, and the authority he inherited, and received in exchange the fire of life itself inside his heart from a wandering seeker.